everybody for coming out. I really appreciate it. This is a rare opportunity to engage with the candidates for both City Council and Mayor for Lewisville. They know we can't vote for them in Castle Hills, but they came out anyway because they recognize there's a link between Lewisville and Castle Hills. We work together on several things. They provide police to us. We contract with them for other things. So it's a relationship. It's not a voting relationship yet, but it's a relationship nonetheless. And really appreciate their time coming out and taking time out of their campaigns to talk to us. Is everybody here from Castle Hills? I think I saw at least a couple people here from Lewisville. Anybody from Lewisville? Fantastic. I'd love to see that. That's great. Fantastic. That's really good. So we're really excited to see you out here. Afterwards, I'll walk you around the plaza if you want. We have some great restaurants here, so just let me know. The donuts are right from the Escape. Really good stuff. So, plug them. You're bad. Well, I don't want to take a poll, is what I'm trying to do here. So I want to acknowledge our sponsors real quick. This is Sally Esposito. She's sponsoring this as well. This is Kim Ortiz's photography studio. So if you need a house or a picture of a house, they're your team right there. They can help you out. There are some other people here in the hold office that are here. Tricia Sheffield, she's from LASD. I wanted to acknowledge that she's here. TJ, I thought was coming out, but maybe he hasn't made it out. TJ Gilmore from the City Council of Lewisville. Guy Harris, he's on the one board beat with me. Namish, I can't pronounce his last name. Patel. I'll try to remember that next time. He's on the board as well. I don't see any other board directors out here. You missed anybody? All right. Any other public officials I didn't recognize? Fantastic. All right, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going through the checklist in my head because I'm kind of winging this, if you can't tell. Introduce sponsors. All right, well, listen to you guys introduce yourselves. We'll just go left or right. Start off with Neil Ferguson.
I'm Neil Ferguson. I'm currently Lewisville City Council, Place 2, running for election.
Rudy Durham. I'm running for Mayor of Lewisville. I'm currently on the City Council.
My name is Brent Daniels, and I'm running for Lewisville City Council, Place 5.
I'm Mayoral, and I'm running for Lewisville City Council, Place 5.
My name is Osmond Baracha, and I'm running for Place 2, opposing Neil.
I'm Winston Edmondson. I'm running for Mayor of Lewisville, and I appreciate you guys for coming out. It's a great turnout tonight.
We have enough chairs for 2, 4, 5.
Chairs.
All right, so you guys have a seat, right? So we actually had some questions gathered beforehand. We're a complicated area. Water district politics is not something that's taught in any civics class I know of. You just got to kind of jump in there and get your feet wet and just understand how it all works. There's Mr. Gilmore, Councilman Gilmore. There you go. Okay, we can start now. TJ.
TJ, storm of the castle.
That's right. I want to stand over on this side, actually. I'm sorry, I almost didn't acknowledge Steve Southwell. Steve runs a blog, Lewisville, Texas Journal. It's a great place for all things local politics, school boards, city council stuff. Sometimes Castle Hill stuff appears out there. He'll be filming this. But anyway, he does a great job with that. Okay, so we actually gathered some questions beforehand. Again, because Castle Hill is a water district and the politics behind water districts, how we're run, how we're governed, are odd. I didn't go through it and try to weed out any questions, and some questions I think that may be more appropriate for school board or something like that, but we just gave them all those questions in advance. If you think of questions while you're here, as time permits, we'll ask those questions as well. So if you have cards and pens over here, raise your hand, we'll have you break down a question. But let's get started. Okay, we'll have, do you think a good time limit is for 60 seconds?
Yes.
Okay, so we'll do 60 seconds for the questions here. And we'll just start. Sorry, I do want to mention that we have one candidate that wasn't able to make it today, John Garina, running for mayor. He's at another meeting. It's actually in Castle Hills as well right now. But I do want to mention that he's not able to make it today. He did send answers to questions, so as appropriate, I'll read those answers that he submitted.
If anybody needs a card during the program, just raise your hand and we'll give this card to you.
Okay.
I've got a question.
Okay, great. Okay, first question. So the Camelot landfill that's come up several times, and I realize maybe some of this that you can't talk about maybe when in executive session for the currently on the board. The extent that you're allowed to talk about the Camelot landfill, there's a question about that. So, and it's multi-part. When is the dump plan to stop being used? So when does it get capped? It's much too big for consideration for moving. You can't move the dump. How can we be sure no safety leaks, unhealthy conditions? Any concerns about birds or other wildlife spreading disease from the landfill? Lots to take in. Just generally, what's your thought? I'm sorry.
Might need to project just a little bit in here, yeah.
So, just generally speaking, the Camelot landfill opinions. What are the options for the Camelot landfill? How do you feel about landfill? Should it be expanded, move somewhere else? We'll start off with Candidate Ferguson.
Can it be expanded? It will continue to grow. They're permitted to a height that they have not reached across the entire existing landfill. So it's probably, they take in about, I think, 1,000 tons a day. They're probably at least 15 years before they fill up. So even if there's no change in the permitting, that it'll continue to grow. Tell me the next part of that question.
Concerns about animals, birds spreading disease from the landfill.
TCEQ requires them to control birds and also what are called vectors, which would be things like insects. So, and then there was a question, I think, about runoff.
Yes.
There is a collection system around, kind of like a moat around, this is a landfill, it's not a dump. There's a big difference, huge difference. And so there's a collection system around the base of the landfill that makes sure that anything running off the hill is collected and processed.
Again, TCEQ is the one that will handle the regulation of it. One thing that we will say is it is an existing landfill. What we've seen in the past when we've talked about landfills, and in Lewisville there are 3 different ones. Once one is existing, TCEQ primarily will continue the existing of it, let it exist, and expand it. That's what we have to fight. What their logic is, why fight an existing landfill when if we close that one, it's going to move down the street somewhere else and we'll have to fight something brand new. So what we have to do is handle it with lawsuits and negotiations, and that's what we've been doing for years.
Well, I mean, it's all been said. I mean, we're trying to limit it to what it was originally planned for, and that's where we need to stop it. We can't stop it before then, but if we can, limit it to what the original plan was for. And I think one of the questions that asking them, what happens to if it does, I mean, this is Farmers Branch. This is their dump, so they're going to be the ones responsible for finding someplace else to take it once they complete it and fill this up.
I was interested to see, though, that Farmers Branch is not doing any recycling, which may or may not do anything to this particular issue so much, but it certainly would cut down, or maybe they'll get to their limit slower. And they'll probably still ask for having it bigger, but I'm not in favor of that. I think that they're going to have to find some kind of an alternative.
Well, there's not much for me to add, and that's already been said, but from a little bit of my own research, I did find out that Farmers Branch did warn Carrollton of the expansion development back in 1996 before there was residential properties there. And because Carrollton obviously wanted to expand growth and in their own area and increase their revenue, they continue to develop a residential area.
I think this is one of many issues that would be great for the mayor to be able to communicate. When you have a huge issue that a lot of people are concerned about, yes, the city's working on it, but people don't always just naturally know. They're worried, and so is the mayor, who can't vote. The mayor is really in Lewisville, it's a ceremonial position, but the mayor's got an opportunity to get out and talk to you guys and let you know, keep you updated. We've got the cable access channel, we have all of our social channels, so I think this is a great opportunity of something that people are thinking about. They see it as they drive by, and the mayor can take that role and be more active and talk to you guys and let you know what's going on, so you don't have to wait every election and be worried about it until then.
Okay. Now we just want to read Candidate Karina's response to this. And I spoke at a public hearing at the Carrollton High School in 2013 against any expansion in that landfill owned by Farmers Branch. They wanted to make it 200 feet higher. This is equivalent of a 20-story building on top of the current maximum allowed height. Lewisville City Council discusses legal courses in closed section, or I'm sorry, legal action in closed sessions. I have not been privy to those discussions since 2013. However, I do believe the council is in agreement that the expansion should not happen as stated in the public hearing mentioned. The city council has been looking into leaching and monitoring reports. It's a concern, but no proof of monitoring, no proof of leakage from monitoring as far as I know. Under the current landfill limits, without expansion, it may continue to grow about another 20 feet and may be filled up in about 10 years. It's unimaginable to think that that mound should grow another 200 plus feet. Farmers Branch needs to find another location. That was the answer from Kenny Green. The next question is about police. We'll start with Kenny Durham over here. So we contract out with those for police through an agreement, the SLA, the annexation. It's paid for by taxes from Target and other, that's all Castle Hills, if people don't know. Target, Kroger, that's all part of Castle Hills. And those sales taxes pay for police and fire protection. Anything that we can't cover with those sales taxes, we as homeowners have to come up with that additional funding. But they do have full police authority out here. They can arrest, they can stop for speeding, they can stop for loitering. So they have full authority out here in Castle Hills. The question is, currently Castle Hills contracts with Lewisville for police and fire. It was asserted at a recent Lewisville meeting that Lewisville is subsidizing these efforts. Do you agree with this? Why or why not? So the question basically is Lewisville subsidizing police force out of Castle Hills?
Right now, we're not subsidizing anything because there's a contract and both sides are fulfilling that contract. It may be that it needs to be looked at again in the future, and that will be done, whether it goes up or goes down. I don't know what's going to come out of it. I wouldn't expect it to go down. And if more is wanted from the different parts of Castle Hills, then of course the cost will go along with that.
Well, at the last city council retreat, the mayor actually asked for, is there a number, how much is being subsidized? And nobody could put their finger on it. So he actually asked for a month to get it back, and they're supposed to get that number back to him. So I haven't seen that number yet. But I mean, our police department's not a for-profit, but it's also not there to lose money. So we need to take a look at it. I mean, we don't need to do anything that's, harmful to citizens on either side. We need to find out what the real number is, and not just a feeling, which is kind of where it's at right now.
Okay.
That was my feeling as well, reading that, thinking, well, who asserted it? Is it a valid assertion? Where did it, under what circumstances was this? But it doesn't appear that that is the case. And so I think that the contract is right in doing what you're doing.
Well, I mean, only thing I can add to that is we probably have the best police force in Castle Hills. Aside from that, I don't know the technicality of exactly what the agreement is, so I don't have the chance to read it.
Okay.
I don't agree with that, and I think probably the biggest problem with that assertion was really that some of the folks on the council don't seem to think of Castle Hills as part of the same community as Lewisville. And I disagree. I think we're all in one community. And so that's the biggest problem. But in addition to that, you've got, as you said, sales tax that is necessary to help this partnership. Well, as mayor, what I want to do is help promote our businesses. I consider them our business partners. In Lewisville, they help us make sure that we can keep property taxes down. Here, it helps this arrangement. So, as mayor, I want to help promote the businesses. I have Lewisville Spotlight videos, but in this case, Castle Hills Spotlight videos. I actually had an Escapade Coffee Shop here on my radio show back in the day. So these are folks that I want to help promote. Let people know, in Carrollton and Farmers Branch, we've got awesome businesses in Castle Hills and Lewisville. Come shop with us, spend your money. That sales tax money can help in all these different areas.
I'm just reading Karina's response here. It says, the retail sales tax from Castle Hills ETJ, extraterritorial jurisdiction, help pay for this coverage. Since Castle Hills is not technically Lewisville proper, I do not believe it's fair for citizens of Lewisville to subsidize. It should be part of the money paid by the water districts to pay those bonds for the infrastructure. I can't elaborate on that, that's just exactly what I said. Next question. I'm sorry. Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
We don't know the answer at this time, and we've hired a consultant, and we wanted a third-party outsider to come in, evaluate the cost of service, and also I think we're very much aware, I'm very much aware that we need to improve the quality of service in this end of town, so Castle Hills, Austin Ranch, Meridian, whatever it is. I will tell you this, if you want to do some quick mental math, we spend about $24 million. It's the single largest part of our budget each year on police enforcement. And your contract services right now, you're paying a little under $159,000. You've got 100,000 people in Lewisville. You've got about, how many here? About 5,000. So do the math. It does suggest that the cost of service is not in alignment with the actual expense. But again, those are the numbers. 24 million to run the police force, and you've got 5,000. We've got 100,000.
So the next question, maybe more of a school board question, so I'll just leave it open if you guys prefer to pass on this question, that's great. The question is there concern for keeping Lewisville schools strong as more and more families begin to send children to private school? How may a vote on school vouchers affect Lewisville schools?
I'll go ahead and go with that. I mean, first of all, as far as school vouchers, that's not something the city council can do, so that's more of a state issue, so not really something that concerns us. You know, the thing about it is, and I'm not really sure who all these people are that are leaving Hebron High School. I mean, if you look at Hebron, it's rated as one of the best schools in the state, one of the best high schools in the state, and rated number 14 in the entire Metroplex as far as best high schools. So it's not a horrible high school. Every high school has things it needs to work on, and that's where the parents and the school board and the principal need to work together. But I mean, I'm a product. I've got 2 kids that have gone through LHS. My daughter graduated LHS in 2011. She got accepted to every college she, put a request into. She got scholarships to every one of them. She graduated in 3.5 years, and the lonely bad record was she had an A- in 3.5 years graduating early. And that's a product of LHS and LISD schools. So I'm a firm supporter of LISD schools, and I can tell you this, I mean, they all need to be improved. But that's the parents and the principals and the teachers. I don't think running away from it and going to private schools, if people need to do that, then that's their business.
I'm not trying to address LISD questions.
Okay, sure. Any comment?
I just want to add to the fact that I believe in parents choosing the best for their kids. Like, they want to send them to private schools. I mean, that's obviously their children. They want the best for them. I am a product of private school. My nieces and nephews are product of private schools. But I don't believe in cutting funding for LISD or creating a voucher system, because if they start defunding the public schools, then the public school system would obviously eventually collapse.
Quickly, I think part of the problem is a communication gap. LISD is doing some really wonderful things. I was part of the strategic design team that, in a lot of ways, we're rethinking the way we're doing education. A lot of positive things that not everyone's aware about. Now, the city council is, of course, a different entity from the school board, but there's really no reason why we shouldn't be cooperating, and why the council and specifically the mayor can't help that effort in communicating, talking about some of the great things that are taking place, because when you have folks that are aware of it, they're less concerned, they're less, they don't think about private schools much when they realize, wow, you're doing this and really no one else in the area is doing that. So again, communication I think is key, and as mayor I'll help, not just Lewisville issue, but school board issues. I'd love to partner with them to get the word out about the great things we're doing.
Ultimately, this is a state issue. It's not something that city council has any control on. So it's really a question, I think, for the school board or for state representatives. Personally, I don't know that I have an opinion. I see arguments on both sides. I can see arguments against it for it. But fortunately, I'm not the one that's going to make that decision. So.
Okay. Any comments about this?
Sure. We have dealt with the Lewisville ISD School Board in the past on issues, and it ranges with everything. In the city of Lewisville, there are students that go to Hebron, Lewisville, and Marcus, and I'm sure some others. So it's not just 1 or 2, 3 high schools. There's all over the board. As far as voucher goes, I'm against those. If I owned a private school and I'm full, getting the most money I can right now, and the state comes in and says, here, we're gonna give parents $5,000 each to get you a private school. My price just went up $5,000. I'm a businessman, that's what I would do. And I think that's what they would do too. Problems are gonna be problems no matter what. What we've gotta look at is the cost per student. If the cream of the crop leaves the schools, and the schools are, the public schools are left with all the discipline problems, with disabilities and so on, the cost is just gonna go up.
Okay, great. All right, thank you. That was a great answer to those questions here. Good question. Let's see, going down, here's a question near to everybody's heart that's comes up all the time. So every Friday, Guy Harris back there joins me most Fridays up at Escape from about 7 to 8 to answer questions about taxes and utilities, and annexation comes up fairly often. You know, when you first move into Castle Hills, it's a different way to govern, and annexation comes up over and over again. So this question about annexation, and it says specifically, is it written in stone that Castle Hills will be annexed by Lewisville, or is it possible that plans could change and Castle Hills could be annexed by Carrollton or another city? It's been rumored that annexation of Castle Hills is an all or nothing prospect. That is to say, Lewisville cannot annex one district without taking them all. We're 8 separate districts out here, 8 separate governing bodies. Just like there's one city council for Lewisville, the water boards basically act as small city councils for different areas of Castle Hills. So maybe just for clarification on that. What are your views about annexation of Castle Hills? Would it be a good or bad thing for Lewisville?
I think it would be an excellent thing for Lewisville. I do believe that we do have to wait until the debt is paid down, unfortunately. But I don't see that we need to wait until the debt's paid down to welcome you all into our fold, to make you feel welcome, to let you know that we are part of you and you are part of us. Where I think the intention is for the annexation, I believe it's for all of it. I have not heard any rumors to the contrary, so that would be my way of looking at it. But I do believe that we could do more in a cohesiveness and a more of a neighborly sort of thing to make you feel welcome.
Yes.
I think Lewis will be at a great loss if they lost Castle Hills. As at this point, I mean, it's a product that's ready, and it's up and coming. It's not any different than the Shops of Legacy, and it would be a great addition to Lewisville. I think Lewisville as a whole would benefit great from it, as far as property values and a new scenery, up to date.
Okay.
It's a challenge, what we have here. We would all, I believe, love to annex Castle Hills. The problem is, like we discussed, the debt. So in the meantime, what can we do? I mean, there are some goals that you guys have, I'm sure. How can we achieve them? So for example, you can't have a library because you guys don't really have the authority to do so, and you're not technically part of Lewisville. But, you know, who's to say we can't work with LISD and perhaps make, discuss at least the possibility of making their library open to the public? I mean, there's some things that in strategic design we've talked about, opening things up to the community. Castle Hills, I think, would be a great area to experiment with some of that, because while we can't offer you the traditional services, that doesn't mean that we can't be innovative and figure out how can we accomplish some of the same things in different ways. So until we're able to make it official, I think we should try to figure out what we can do in the meantime. And I would include amongst that is to kind of help give you some additional representation. As mayor, I would want to come out and visit with you guys at some of your meetings, and just make sure you know that there's someone that has an ear that's listening to your concerns and can take those concerns to the city council.
Patrick, I think we drifted pretty far from the question. You want to read it again?
Sure. The question is it written in stone that Castle Hills will be annexed by Lewisville, or the possible that plans could change and Castle Hills will be annexed by Carrollton or some other city?
So the answer to that question is, it's considered impossible. We have right of first annexation. That's by law because of the arrangement we're under, and Patrick will confirm that to you. So the only possible way another city could annex you is if, first of all, the city of Lewisville desired not to do it, and secondly, somebody would write a check for all of your streets, sewer, water, and other infrastructure that we own. That's not likely to happen, so I can't imagine it. So the answer to the question would be, it is Lewisville. It's not going to be somebody else.
Next part of that question is the rumor that it's an all or nothing prospect?
No, it's not an all or nothing prospect. The trick here is to not bring you in at a higher level of debt than we would already have in our own city. It would affect not only our property taxes, but our ability to issue bonds. So different districts will likely come in at different times. The sequence in my head is BDEH, and I say that because if you look at when the debt was issued and the amount of debt, and look at when that debt will come down to a reasonable level, it doesn't have to be lower than our tax rate, but it has to come down to a level where we can absorb that debt and not impact our own ability to issue bonds and our own tax rate. So it will come at different times depending on when bonds were issued and the amount of bonds.
And the last part of that question is, in your opinion, is that a good thing or a bad thing for
I
Lewisville?
think it's probably a good thing because I don't want to make it sound like the first district in is some sort of science fair project, but taking it all in at one time could be an overwhelming process. We're talking, if you're going out to the end of when all debt is retired, you're talking 25 years from now. Nobody wants to wait that long. If you're talking about doing it all now, I just told you why you can't. It would kill the city financially. But I think also it's that opportunity for us to bring in the first district, see what bumps in the road might be that we couldn't have foreseen, and then that will smooth the road as we go forward.
As far as any agreements that were done when Castle Hills was established, one provision was that the commercial properties would not be taken in without all of the residential gone already. So Lewisville couldn't just go out and pick up the commercial stuff and bring that in. And we agreed to that, and we'll stay with that. As far as when a particular entity would come over into Lewisville, if you just took your value within whatever district you're in, multiplied it by the INS, the debt rate at the city of Lewisville, if that equaled enough to pay the debt for that district, then it would be time to bring into the city. That's the simple way to look at it. The quicker y'all pay down the debt, or the ones who are in the districts pay down the debt, the quicker it can go into the city. We don't want to bring in anybody where people from another part of town in Lewisville have to pay the debt for this area. So, and remember, the debt in Lewisville is under 45 cents per 100, and some of the districts are up to $1.
Yeah, I'm not gonna get into nuts and bolts, I think everybody's hit that, but, I mean, as far as it being a good thing, I think it's a good thing for both Castle Hills and for Lewisville. And one of the things that I challenge are the people that are from Castle Hills to take a look at the Lewisville 2025 plan. There's a lot of great things that are gonna happen. One of them is gonna affect y'all, that y'all are right here near it, and that's that green centerpiece with, I mean, the Audubon Center and everything that may be going in out there, and all the trails and all the, you know, the wildlife that we have out there. Y'all are closer to it than most of the people that are in, you know, old Lewisville, so it's a great thing for y'all. And like Rudy said, I mean, if for some reason another city did it, which it won't happen, I mean, the Colony has got like 0.67 as far as the tax rate, Carrollton 0.62, and we're 0.44. We're one of the lowest in the Dallas area, North Texas area, so that's a great advantage when, you know, you've got a home of nice value, 0.44 versus 0.67. It's a great way to go.
And reading Lieutenant Garina's response, it just says, no, it's not written that Castle Hills will be annexed. The debt that Castle Hills holds will have to be shared by all the citizens of Lewisville, which will increase the current tax rate dramatically. Some estimates are nearly double current tax rates. As Castle Hills grows, this makes the gap larger. The rates would need to be very close to the same rate in order for annexation. The water districts are paying the bonds from Lewisville for the infrastructure. It may behoove Castle Hills to become its own city and continue to pay Lewisville to pay off infrastructure. Okay. How are we doing on time?
It is.
7:30.
Great. Okay, here's a question about development in Castle Hills. Again, this may be so specific to Castle Hills that you just may not be going to answer the question. That's fine. We'll read this question as it's written. You guys decide if you can answer this or not. Castle Hills North residents are concerned about development. Their townhomes development. There's a townhome development plan for the area between Windhaven and Highway 121. The North residents are concerned about this development. Meeting minutes from November zoning meetings seem to indicate that Lewisville City Council knew this development was planned for much higher density of population per acre than would be approved by the rest of Lewisville. Why was this density approved? Will any city council candidate pledge to assist Castle Hills North residents in fighting this development? Oh, sorry, where were you off?
I'm unaware of that.
Okay.
Yeah, what I want to talk about is, in regards to that issue, is transparency. Your question is, why did that happen? As mayor, I wouldn't be able to vote, but what I would do is ask the council members why they voted in particular ways. A lot of times, you'll have folks vote and they don't explain why they voted. When you find out why someone voted a yes, when you hear that explanation, it may be okay. You may be okay with it. When you hear an explanation, a different explanation, it may enrage you. So finding out the rationale, what went behind that vote, in my opinion, is very important. That helps with transparency, helps with accountability. So with something like this, where I'm mayor, that would be part of the discussion. Let's talk about, let's put it on public record. Why are we doing this? Why are we voting this way? So as Lewisville citizens vote, and you guys can't vote, but you'll be knowledgeable as to why this took place.
Let's go back to the question. You asked why we allowed to this level of density when it wouldn't be allowed elsewhere in Lewisville. It's been allowed and it's been done elsewhere in Lewisville. We're doing it in Old Town right now. And Old Town, if you know much about Lewisville, is kind of a area that we are trying to redevelop and take great pride in. It's been done in a number of areas at the same density. We've also done 3-story in 5 new communities. It's nothing new. It is a product that is in demand. It's generally not in demand by families. It's more in demand by millennials and by empty nesters. So I know there was, I think, an adjunct part of this that asked about crime and so forth. That's not going to be the nature of this community, not with a starting price of $300,000 per, or give or take, around that price. So, but there's nothing that we haven't already done.
The property was zoned light industrial. So it went from light industrial to residential, a quality product. It was an easy answer. I don't think there was any opposition. There was one person spoke against it, another one put in a card that was against it, and they were residents of the area right next to it. It was a no-brainer to me. It had to be done.
Well, this is an area that borders 121, so you're not putting $1 million homes on the frontage road of 121. And Castle Hills from the beginning was going to have some multifamily and other products throughout. So this is actually a lot better product than having an auto body shop or a warehouse there in the original light industrial. This is a much better product and kind of filters into leading into the rest of Castle Hills. I was on planning and zoning and I voted for it, and I think it's a good move for Castle Hills, and I think it would be a mistake to try to, and it's going now, but it would be a mistake to try to stop it.
I'm not sure that I can expand on what any of them have said at this point. I wasn't on the P&Z when it was voted in, but if we are redoing it, so, and in part, really, the question is a little bit moot.
All right, so last question from the ones that were handed out, and we have a few from the audience that have come in. I'm sorry, I almost forgot to read Mr. Green's here. Kenny Green says, at this time, I believe a Bright Industries company has presented plans more than once in the last 2 years. They've already been approved by the current council for Lewisville to install the infrastructure for Castle Hills 2. Our recollection may be that of the Castle Hills 2 expansion off to the northeast of current Castle Hills 1. I do remember that the current city council had been presented portions of this development to workshop and center. I'm not sure what the process is at this point since I do not have access to the legal side as that was discussed in closed sessions. This goes back to something I alluded to earlier. It wasn't a direct question, but certainly some of you touched on this. But since Castle Hills residents can't vote, can they serve on a city jury or participate in city commissions and committees? Does any candidate have any plans or ideas for ways to address the effects of disenfranchisement? I think we start off with
Well, you know, with committees, you can actually show up and be involved. I don't believe, and we'll probably get the official answer here shortly, I don't believe you can officially be assigned. But you can go. I mean, I've actually never been selected to get on a board. I wish I could, but that's not up to me. So I go and I can attend and get all the information and even participate kind of on an unofficial basis. So that's always open to you. I do think representation is important. I mean, it's kind of what this country is founded on. You need to be represented. So there are things you can do. You can well, forums like this, for one. You can support folks that that communicate with you. You know, if there are candidates that are talking about Castle Hills and their concerns, and you feel like they understand your plight and want to work towards making things better, you can support them. You can help get the word out. And we have a very abysmal voter turnout. About 2% of registered voters in Lewisville vote. We need to increase that. You know, sending out mailers. Castle Hills could certainly blanket all of Lewisville with mailers saying vote, vote, vote. So,
Again, going back to the question, so boards, commissions, it's one of those great politician answers, it depends. With boards, most all of them have a residency requirement. Almost all of them have a residency requirement. And so at that time in which you're annexed in, then you would be eligible to be on the boards. The exceptions that I'm aware of are a board that I was personally responsible for creating, the Arts Advisory Board. And on the Arts Advisory Board, the way that I had it set up, it allows people in the community to participate under certain places on that board, because I wanted an arts board because I think it attracts a lot of the right professionals to the community, but I wanted people on the board to bring the right skills to the table. We are looking at something like planning and zoning. It needs to be somebody that is invested specifically in Lewisville. Animal control, you can have a business that's animal related in Lewisville and be on animal control, not live there. Old Town Design Review, you can have a business in Old Town, not live there. Those are the only exceptions I know of. So that's the way it's set up.
Ditto to that, and I believe it's by charter, I think.
It is.
So it would have to be a charter change also. And would the city of Lewisville, with the residents there, want people from outside the city running their boards and commissions? And I think the answer is no.
Okay, so we know the ordinance, but what can we do? And there are a lot of organizations. Take the Chamber of Commerce. The Lewisville Chamber, it is the greater Lewisville area chamber, and I'm sure that, and in fact I know there's a lot of businesses in Castle Hills that are a member of that Chamber of Commerce. So great way to get involved in the business side of it. Another place to start is Leadership Lewisville. You don't have to necessarily be in Lewisville to be a part of that. Also run by the Chamber. And there you find great avenues to different organizations. That's where I found Keep Lewisville Beautiful. And honestly, I feel like maybe the most important board that I'm on right now is Keep Lewisville Beautiful. And it's something that we're doing to help the city. And I guarantee we have board positions open, and we would love to have somebody from the Castle Hills area to start bringing in the other side of the city into it.
I don't know that we have an answer for the disenfranchisement, honestly, based on all of the rules we've talked about. But I think Winston did have a good point in at least being involved, knowing what's going on in the city. And you have friends that probably live in Lewisville. Maybe that's a small influence to you, but it is an influence nonetheless. But again, there really isn't anything as far as the boards and the commissions.
Well, I mean, judging by the crowd that turned out tonight, I obviously would love to seek out ways to bridge the gap between Castle Hills and Lewisville. One of my proposals was to create an app by Code for America, which would be an interactive app to obviously let people download and interact with Lewisville City Hall as well as the residents. So it would be basically similar to the Facebook page of City of Lewisville, but it would be more on an app based in real time, so that everyone would know what's going on in Lewisville and the outskirts of Lewisville as well.
I'm going to read Candidate Karina's response here. One of the requirements for participation in these committees is to be a citizen. However, some special committees, special rules, I-35 expansion, etc., and boards that are partially filled with stakeholders that include business owners that may not live in Lewisville. I would have to give it the city court department to verify council's residents to be called for city jury duty. I don't think we can. The county courts, of course, we can't go to the county courts, everybody knows that. I do want to take one quick plug for, you mentioned KLB. That is a great organization. We actually went out tomorrow. My family does this about every time we compete directly with the Southwest team. We beat them every single time. But if anybody wants to join us tomorrow, I'm happy to give you some information. We love going out there. It's what, 3 hours maybe? You go out there and
Saturday morning.
Oh, I'm sorry, I said that. I'm one day ahead. It's Saturday. That's right. So, so anyway, talk to me afterwards. Talk to Steve afterwards, and we need some information on how to go out there. But it's a great group. We always have fun doing that. All right, so I'm done with the questions that were submitted early, and Judith here.
No, everybody knows who I am.
I'm sorry, I didn't announce you. Basically, the way this all came about is, as I was talking to you, I said, we should have some sort of forum. She said, great, and then it was done. I mean, that was my whole part of this, was saying, we should have a forum, and it just took off. So, appreciate you doing something on that. All right. Okay, here's a question. If Council Hills districts are annexed at different times, how would that look? How can services such as animal control, hazardous waste disposal, and other services be regulated by district? And I think we're back to Karen Ferguson.
You know, I kind of answered that question already, because I said as we bring districts in stages, the first one becomes the Science Fair project. And that's not to say that we wouldn't think this process through before bringing it in, but you haven't done anything in your life that you could have predicted every outcome, and especially something this complex. So same situation here, but I think that's really the answer.
That's fine.
As far as if the city could handle it, I guess that's the question. We have situations between Flower Mound, Highland Village, Coppell, that you're in the city here, across the street you're not. We handle those every day. Animal control deals with it. Police deal with it. I-35E, if there's a police chase coming from Denton to Carrollton, Lewisville's going to be involved in that, and vice versa going the other way.
It's kind of like a business on a soft opening. I personally feel it would be much better to do it in stages than to try to do it all at once.
In fact, I think that's the ideal way, because we'll learn from that. And I think obviously we're going to be very cautious about how we do this. We realize that we have people involved in those people's lives and what they're interested in and what their entire residency and what is important to them. But doing it at a stage at a time helps us to learn. Each one gets better. Each one gets more thorough. And, you know, it is kind of interesting, but we've got one intersection that I know of in Lewisville/Flower Mound, which is the one up near my house, that if you're on this side of the street, you're Flower Mound in the same intersection, and if you're on this side of the street, you're in Lewisville. And everybody sort of has to figure out what side of the street that car was hit on, where did it slide to, and it's really ridiculous sometimes, but it gets done. We figure it out, and it all happens. So I think we will also figure this out too.
As far as annexing Castle Hills, you know, Lewisville's 90 years old, and I think at some point, no one predicted the exponential growth of DFW and all these people moving in from all over the world. So there was not a lot of pre-planning done as far as this growth that just happened overnight pretty much. It's kind of like Dubai. But I think the best thing would be to annex parts of it and already start planning some of that in advance and creating a blueprint.
Great answers. I think there's a lot of uncertainty as we move forward, but one thing I believe that will make you guys feel better is if you have leadership on the city council that can demonstrate that they care about, you know, what you guys are going through, and they don't think of you as kind of a different species almost, or you know, I've heard some comments about not feeling like you're really included, like you belong, and I think some of those worries will go away when you have leadership that expresses that what happens here matters, because you know, when you have uncertainty, at the same time you have questions about, you know, what the leadership really cares about, that makes it all that much worse. So I think we can do a better job at showing to you that we do care about what's taking place here.
This is more a question for the whole panel. I think I'm accurate in saying that there's nothing that prevents Castle Hills residents from going and attending Lewisville city council meetings and speaking during public comments. Is that an accurate statement? Nobody checks our ID or address and you can't talk because you're not, okay, I thought so.
We've had people more often than you might think from Flower Mound come to speak.
Okay. Any other
If
questions?
if I could just add on to that question. So if somebody from Castle Hills comes to a city council meeting, are we welcome to speak just like Lewisville?
During the
Sure about
visitors,
that?
during the citizen visitor forum, or if there's an agenda item, fill out a card, you want to speak on a particular agenda item. It has to be either on the agenda, or you can present anything you want during visitor citizen, but we can't take action because that item is not posted to the public in advance. So those are the two categories. It's either got to be agenda, you speak on that item, speak on anything, but we can't take action on it.
That visitor citizen for clarification is like the school board meeting, our meetings, we got 3 minutes to talk at the start. It's not some separate things. You're up on the day I was up there, and you're hearing everybody talk for 3 minutes. How long did we get?
It's 3 or 5.
Sure, we're a little flexible.
Very good. So again, there's nothing that prevents us or keeps us from going out there and addressing the city council of Lewisville, other than we just typically don't do it.
I think it's also important that both sides bridge the gap between Castle Hills and City Council. I think it's also an initiative on Castle Hills side to come out to the council meetings and take part, or at least be, attending as preparation for the future. So I mean, it's a little bit of both sides too for that.
Anybody else have any comments about that before we move on to the next question? Any other questions? Are there any other questions out there before, because we're down to this last couple? Any other questions?
Can I just ask, how do you get something on the agenda at the city council?
That's a great question.
You can call the city secretary. It has to be relevant to what the city council can do.
Okay. The city secretary.
Just to go up there and say, I want to talk about somebody in particular, and that will not get on the agenda.
Right, but if it's
So-
an issue like a,
If it's a legitimate reason to have on there, then yes, that would be on there.
It has to be something that we have jurisdiction over.
right, the Lewisville city secretary.
I would start there.
Okay.
And in addition to that, one of the things that I plan on doing that I don't believe has been done in Lewisville, in my recollection, is open office hours for the mayor. And I would open that up obviously to Castle Hills residents as well, where scheduled open office hours, I'll be at the office of the mayor in Lewisville. People can stop by without an appointment if they have an issue they want to talk to the mayor about. We can chat. If it is something that needs to be addressed by the council, the mayor can put that on the agenda. So that will potentially be an additional way to move things forward and get them on in front of the entire council.
I like that too.
Okay.
So the earlier the app that I was talking about, which was Code for America, that's actually an interactive app where you would submit your question or your concern through the app into the Lewisville database, and then the city secretary would take that up.
We're actually going to be rolling out, it's already in the works, rolling out an app for smartphones that will let you do pretty much everything, that and more. So we've already got that under house and been working on it.
Okay.
And probably be out, you might see a rollout as early as May. I think that's May.
And then when that's available, where would we go to be notified that that's rolled out
We
now?
got the app. Keep an eye on city council meetings, or keep an eye on your iPhone.
Or Facebook.
I mean, there's a City of Lewisville Facebook page, a lot of things like that. You'll see me post things like that out there that are public interest items, so you'll see publicity. That's probably the quickest place you'll see it, is on the Facebook page, which is not operated by the city, by the way. It's operated by citizens.
So I do want to point out, I don't know who submits what card, we're just reading them anonymously, but if there's anybody here from Lewisville, this isn't just Castle Hills questions. So if there's people from Lewisville have questions, feel free to submit those as well. I just want to make that clear before we move on. Okay, next question. Where did we leave off? Who started last?
Go back to Neil.
Okay. You're at home. We're getting commercial airplanes circling around lately. Is there anything that can be done for commercial airlines?
Cities have no control over the FAA, period.
And if anybody has complaints here, you can come to my house. And we're right in the path of DFW, so.
My father, when he lived with me, he used to like count them through the window at night when he would do it, so it's not anything we can do.
I sit at my house, I would sit out on the front stoop and I would just watch them come in like this, all day, all night. Take my grandkids out there, they love to watch the lights come, but it's noisy and it's busy.
Anything to add?
Well, I mean, I would love to own one day.
Okay, this is the last question?
I think that's it.
I think this is just a clarification question that we had today. So Carrollton is adding signs, seems like all over the place. So Carrollton has added signs on Josie Lane, between Park and Windhaven. Tooth Acres Pet Center has a Carrollton, Maryland address. Is this an indication that other cities may access? And this may have been asked and answered. So here's for everybody. Come with that. Anybody make me add? Sure.
Sure. Mail addresses don't mean anything to city limits. They are by the zip code. If it gets to be a bigger area, more population there, they will change some of the zip codes around. The city of Carrollton goes all around at the corner of 544 and Josie, the northeast corner where HEB grocery stores is bought. That's in the city of Carrollton today. The other corner where the liquor store is, that's Hebron. The two south corners are in Carrollton. Lewisville is just north of there on both sides of Josie. Plano is to the east a little bit. Carrollton goes up to where Pizza Inn, headquarters is in the city of the Colony. The Cisco Foods is in Lewisville. The Tag Apparel Mill is in Lewisville. The Colony is where Austin Ranch is. Plano wraps around, so it's all over. And a lot of it is because the way Hebron was de-annexed. And this was a part of Hebron also. And basically it was set up so that when the property owners wanted to develop their property, they went into the other cities because Hebron was not going to go in and put the infrastructure in to make that happen.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like a checkerboard, but I mean, Castle Hills isn't the only Lewisville city limits that are out here. There's a lot more to Lewisville that's kind of encircles parts of Castle Hills too. So.
Not really, no, thank you.
Right? Anything to add? All right, great.
You didn't guess me.
I'm sorry.
My answer is
It's not personal, I really like it.
My answer is fairly short. Go check Google Earth, but actually, if you go to the City of Lewisville website, we have a map, a map where you can turn layers on and off, city limits, different sections of the city, different features. And I think did you post something recently that I posted back that map to, a link to that map? Somebody did. But anyway, you can answer all kinds of questions about what Lewisville is and isn't.
Is anybody else? There are some questions from the field that we'll take, and I can give that as a closing question. Mr. Southwell, your question?
I do. The question I would ask is just to the candidates, what is your take on Vision 2025, and to what extent will that drive your agenda with regards to your office?
Castle Hills or 2025?
Just Vision 2025 in general.
2025 is everything. We'll get ad hoc issues, we always do, but we didn't set out to involve a large number of citizens in a process to tell us where we should take the city between now and 2025, just to put the plan on the shelf. We've been very proactive so far in actually implementing a substantial chunk of that plan. We'll keep doing that. We didn't do it just for entertainment. We did it because it is our plan. That's what we will execute. And Castle Hills kind of factors into that because one of those is thriving communities and choices, living choices. And even from the get-go with Castle Hills, the whole reason Lewisville got involved is they saw it as an opportunity to create an executive housing community, which we really didn't have. So it factors right into 2025. But 2025 is the guidepost, period.
Maybe we'll just do this more as an open panel now, so if anybody would like to chime in and add to that.
Sure. Transportation, 2025, all that. Transportation, I-35 is the biggest project going in Lewisville and in the region right now. First phase is $1.8 billion, and it is a mess from LBJ to 380. It's not going to get better in the next few years. This is phase one of 3 phases. In addition to that, we've got Valley Ridge that's coming out across 35E, north of Maine, coming over to Business 121. That's in the works right now. And then the next project is Corporate Drive, Carrollton Parkway, Windhaven. And we've got across the river, south of Business 121, then hook on to Carrollton Parkway, come across Windhaven, then Windhaven is in Lewisville there, and we're going underneath the railroad track. That would be north of the elementary school and north of the Career Center East right there. And then that would connect up Windhaven over to DNT.
When I go back, I encourage everybody that has not seen the 2025 plan to look it up on the city council, or the city of Lewisville website. I was very involved with that. They had 4 committees. I was chairman of the growth committee. And one of the reasons that I wanted to run for city council is to make sure this document didn't get done and go away. I mean, how can you have, we had hundreds of people, thousands of ideas, and people talk about their ideas and our ideas, but this is truly the will of the people. This is what the citizens want, and it's what I want to fight for to make sure that not just the next year, but the next 10 years, that we're actively pursuing this.
Brett and I were actually on the same committee. He was the chair, and I was one of the folks that worked on that. I am very, very much invested in 2025. I've lived in Lewisville for 32 years. I am planning on staying, and the future of Lewisville is very, very important to me and the community that I'm going to retire in, that I'm going to stay in. The 2025 plan was a lot of work, a lot of research, and certainly a lot of input from the citizens. And when the council adopted it, it became serious. And now that's where we're going. We had a meeting last night on one of the big moves of thriving neighborhoods. It was a great meeting. It showed all of the momentum that's behind this. And it's definitely a strong part of where we're going. It's really where we're going.
Anything to add?
Well, I'll make a short answer really long, and I'll talk for a little bit. Basically, I lived in Lewisville in 2010. I graduated from UNT, Go Mean Green. I really love Lewisville. I enjoy Lewisville. When I graduated, I was a candidate for the United States State Department for Foreign Services. And I had an offer for a job back where I'm originally from, which is New York. And I had a job offer from Wall Street, and then I had a job offer from here in Lewisville, where I work for right now, which is TIA Craft. And I love Lewisville. I really love it, living there. And I came back after having lived away for 1 year. I came back to Lewisville, and I'm really excited for the 2025 vision from a business standpoint. With the exponential growth in DFW, I probably would have scaled back the time a little bit, more 5 years instead of 10 years. But obviously the makers probably know better. So I'm really excited to see what's going to happen.
I'm fully behind the plan. I think the role of the mayor can actually become more involved and help facilitate some of that, help bring more citizens to the table. You had great participation, but obviously not full participation. A lot of people in the city that living busy lives, they didn't hear about it, they didn't get involved. The mayor can make a real effort to get more people involved, get more people aware and excited about what's happening. I think the mayor's role as the face of the city is to keep people excited about living in Lewisville and help folks that are considering where should I move to get excited about all the possibilities in Lewisville. So I think that goes right along with Vision 2025.
Okay. Other questions from the field? Cindy, I thought you had a question there. I'll call you out.
Okay, all right then. It was brought up earlier about the township of Hebron and how there's kind of little plots here and there. And I know surrounding Castle Hills, in particular right behind my house, there's a strip of land not big enough to put anything on that's owned by the township of Hebron. I just wondered what your relationship is with the township of Hebron, if it's anything that perhaps in the future it's looked at when annexation is possible, that some of those plots will also be annexed, or if the township of Hebron is strong and wants to remain independent on its own.
I'm going to real quick, I've been trying not to do that in this, but I'm familiar with the strip of land behind Mercedes House. We've actually had homeless people back there, vagrants that are tent back there where the homeless encampment. So it's a safety issue as well as just an issue about what we do with the land. So with that kind of coloring, Cindy's question.
Well, and part of it too, like even Standards Road, I mean, that land there just got de-annexed by Hebron. And, now, I guess the city of Carrollton is gonna take the other half of the road, so it'll be 4 lanes actually coming in versus that horrible little road coming in. But Carrollton will take that part of it. So I think it's slowly getting resolved, and this one was just, voted on in the city council meeting at the last meeting. But it's probably gonna take a while.
Hebron de-annexed the land to Lewisville. We de-annexed some slivers to Carrollton because you've got to imagine Carrollton really doesn't want us building their road at their corner. So we de-annexed that little strip back to, over to Carrollton so that they can complete the road. So, but it gets very complicated. And I don't know how many people realize Hebron's not a township in a classical sense. Go try to find the city hall or the city council. Good luck. So it's an interesting situation. Who will grab what, when, and where? A lot will depend on developers. So I don't know. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I don't know.
Well, it just seems like there's nothing that can be built there. I mean, there's our houses, an alley, bushes, a strip of land, and then fences, and then there's townhouses, and then to the other side is that farm that's just going to be annexed into Castle Hills Phase 9. So what happens to that little strip of land? It just seems like,
It's not a little strip, right?
yeah, it's not a little strip. Nothing,
The strip
I don't
of
know
land
that
is
anything
not-
can be built there.
It's
Why?
not owned by the town of Hebron.
It's not?
It's in the town of Hebron. That is the ETJ land.
So what line?
Extraterritorial jurisdiction. That's what keeps Hebron out here and kept Plano and Lewisville and Carrollton and the colony from coming in and taking it over. That was the way it was set up. That 5-foot strip was around the entire property, which included this property at one time. And so eventually all the property in Hebron will go away, except maybe the church. We talked about it at retreat. There's some areas that it's a long ways of the 5-foot strip to connect the properties. And the question comes up on those. They're not next to Hebron, next to Castle Hills area. But some of those areas, just by logistics, probably are not going to be in Lewisville. They will probably either go to Plano or Carrollton. And what I mentioned before, the H-E-B store is in Carrollton. The other parts from that point all the way to the east and back to the south along Charles, around Hebron High School, will probably either be Carrollton or Plano.
I think the other element here you always have to keep in mind is that there's a tendency to say, well, that's in Hebron, it belongs to the town of Hebron. It may not. It's probably private land, and so it's really up to that private landowner. What do they choose to do with their private land, just as you own your house. So it doesn't give a city control over the land.
So I tried to call the town of Hebron, and
Did you
I
find the phone
tried to
number?
call the lady, I don't remember her
Yeah.
name back then, but, so I was trying to figure out who owned that.
He lived in a shed back there.
Maybe once or twice a year.
Yeah.
And maybe it's somebody's house.
Yes.
So there's 3 council members, or 2 council members and the mayor, and that's the strong mayor part. The mayor can do basically anything they want to in Hebron. So, and they used to meet in the church, but I don't think they meet there anymore.
What church?
So,
Hebron Church, the Hebron Church.
And you thought you had an interesting relationship with 1A.
that
500.
strip of land that,
Hebron's population is 500, last time I looked.
I heard yesterday it's 26.
I think
Oh, it's
that's
gone down.
probably
that
more.
strip of land there next to the church, you know, on Stanbridge, so that's gonna be part of Carrollton, right on Hebron, and, but part of Castle Hills, or are they building houses, they're building what? I mean, do we know, because they started clearing that, and evidently putting in some pipes or whatever.
Across from Nazarene Church.
Are they Hebron and Stanbridge, that
No.
used to be a.
I can't remember the, okay. They're gonna build, what I understand was single family home?
Yes.
And that was what they proposed Monday
Castle
night.
Hills is though?
Castle Hills.
Yes.
Castle Hills, I don't know who the builder's gonna be,
Yeah.
but it's gonna be in Castle Hills 1C, I believe.
That whole thing, because it sounded like you were saying that on the part right on Hebron, that belongs to Carrollton, and that strip there was Carrollton, so
We
I'm not-
de-annexed less than
Less than 2
2/10 of an acre, I believe, just enough to get the road widened.
Oh, okay.
I think it was 1 point something acres altogether on Standridge, maybe part of Polster, and
Yeah.
on Hebron. It was de-annexed to Carrollton.
Just to get the road done, that's all.
I got you.
It'll be a right turn lane and the completion of the road on Standridge.
Otherwise, it was, we're building part of it, and they're building part of it, and we're building it by coming through Carrollton to build part of it, and that didn't make sense.
Any other comments about that? There's another question from the two of them.
Oh,
Okay,
no.
good. Okay, yes, sir.
First of all, as a Castle Hills residents, thank you for coming out here and talking with us. We appreciate it. There are a number of us here tonight who are concerned about the townhome development called Windhaven Crossing, what it's called. Who's here who's concerned about that? Okay, good. And we went to a zoning commission meeting, but we were told it's too late because it had already been approved. And what we're concerned about is not that it's there, but how close the townhouses are to our backyards. Is there any recourse we have? Is there anything we could do to help, to have some green space there, or have some buffer or some landscaping? There's no provision for trees, or basically it's our backyard and then 35-foot tall monstrosity, 18 units in a row, right behind us.
What they're building there is legal. The meetings and agendas were posted at least 3 days in advance, which is state law. Everything, all of the process has been open, it's been legal. You're asking to try and reverse time. I can't reverse time.
Do you think it's gonna reduce our property values there?
No, I see no reason why. It's historically, when you look at similar developments in other cities or in our city, it's made no difference. These are high-quality product. I mentioned each unit selling probably in the 300,000s and up. There's no history that would suggest that would happen.
There's nothing preventing you, and I apologize, I have a radio interview I have to get to. So thank you for coming out, I appreciate all of you guys. I would suggest, there's nothing stopping you from speaking to the developer. Not saying that it's likely to make a difference, but a group of concerned citizens can certainly raise that issue with them, and it's not impossible to persuade and change minds. So that's the point. That's what I would probably do. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I'll say this, you can talk to the developer if you want. This is a special use permit, so everything is platted from the get-go. Everything is platted. It's approved as a whole project. It's not like just zoning, where it says, well, you can be up to this dense, but you can't be more than this, or you can build this product, but you can't build that, or you can build a car repair shop, that, whatever. It's not like zoning where it's a general description of what can go there, and then somebody gets to fill in the blanks as long as it's a legal product. It's very much specified down to the last square inch. Even the garage door, what the garage doors are made out of, brick content, everything is already specified. I don't want to, I know y'all are going to burn my car down when I leave, but everything's been done, and it was an open process. But you can talk to the developer. For him to reverse that process would be monumentally expensive, would cost him time. So I don't think that's even an option, but you're welcome to talk to him.
I agree with that. You can talk to them. Again, from the outside looking in on a piece of property, this was zoned light industrial between 121 Windhaven and a railroad track. And zoned light industrial, and they were willing to come in with a less zoning into a, wouldn't call it single family, but single family units detached.
Sorry. Any other comments about that?
I was on the
Go ahead.
Some of the backyards are 10 feet or even less, and 35 feet just behind their backyard. It will probably put down the value of their property, as well as security and safety concerns for a little growing up here. It's a concern for us, definitely. I don't know if that was considered by the.
As far as high density, when you're talking about high density.
Well, and also they're just gonna be looking from above down into our backyards, into our windows. It's like, they'll just be right up there, 35 feet down into our windows. Screening would help, get trees or something.
Well, I mean, in all fairness, complaining to them or trying to talk to them, you might be able to get them to put some kind of barrier between a big fence, as well as like we've got other than phase one, and we've got those huge, giant tree bushes behind us, as well as the fence on the other side of that, which helps somewhat, so if you can get them to put something up like that they may not have wanted to put up or planned on putting something, and you can get them to do that if you scream loud enough, it might help somewhat.
But they're not my recommendation. Is look for, if you talk to them, replanting it means moving every street. That's why I say it's not going to get replanted. But look at talking about possible mitigating factors that they could implement. And that would be, the solution that's potentially still available to you. But for the developer to replat every street in there and every lot at this point in time, I've spent a lot of money.
There would be also something you need to look at that would benefit the owner of the property and yours at the same time. To go in and argue from one, you're going to do this and that's not going to get you anywhere.
I don't mean to sound, like the bad guy. I'm just trying to tell you the facts. You need to know what you're working with.
And I'm trying to be realistic.
And I agree that it's a fait accompli because the process has happened. I was at the city council meeting where that was accepted, and I buttonholed the developer. He said that they were going to start turning dirt in February. Here we are halfway through April, even more, and he's not turned any dirt that I have seen.
That's an easy explanation. What is the weather been like? What is the rainfall been like?
Well, I'm curious,
Construction's been delayed.
if there is anything that is in the planning and zoning statutes that require him to.
For timing? No.
He has absolutely. And I will say that, Winston spoke to being welcome to come speak. When I was there and was speaking, it was pointed out that I was not a citizen of Lewisville, even though I had signed up. And that made me feel uncomfortable speaking in front of city council. So I hope that y'all will be, those of you who do ascend, that you will be understanding and welcoming to people who do take the time.
I'll say that I've been on the city council since 1994, and anybody can get up as long as they're on topic and speak before the city council.
I understand.
And you weren't denied to speak before the city council.
I was interrupted in my 3 minutes to have the mayor tell me that I was not a citizen of Lewisville.
The mayor's not up here today.
Yeah, that's what I would say. I would have not necessarily handled it that way.
Any other questions from the field?
Can I ask one question on the landfill? The TCQ has temporarily, or they recommended that they're going to pass for the 200-foot addition on Camelot. What is Lewisville's position on that?
Well, first of all, TCQ has deemed the permit request technically complete. That means that all of the components are there to allow the permit to go forward. They've issued a draft permit. The draft means that's not finalized. What is our position? I didn't go down to Austin and talk to two different, before the House Committees on Environmental Relations on two different landfill bills because I want it to happen. So you're talking to somebody that's done everything on the planet. Judith will tell you, done everything on the planet to try and see that this does not occur.
No, I understand that, I've been down there myself, so that's why I'm asking you. With regards to that, it's pretty much hitting the rubber stamp of TCQ. The period to put a public or a discussion point is coming up here, or may actually be tonight, I think it's today, is the final day that we're supposed to file things.
Now, it appears that way, but in fact, this, when they issued that comment, it's in fact extraordinary. Normally it's tied to the date at which they issued a comment, but if you read what they wrote, they said it's tied to the date in which it's published.
Okay.
So that shifts the date out, and I've looked at that 3 times and it still comes back reading the same way. So it's actually a little further out.
So again, it comes back to the question, what is your positions on if that gets approved? I mean, Lewisville has the authority on special use permit. I mean, is there anything that Lewisville is looking at doing in addition to?
We're fighting this on several fronts. So for example, the bills that I went down and spoke in favor of, by the way, did make it out of committee. They'll make it to the floor. Those are one approach to trying to stop it. And it's a different approach from the health and environmental aspects, which is a different approach from the city permitting authority. So it's a 3-pronged attack. And I don't know if you realize that, but there's 3 angles in motion here.
Yeah, no, I'm sure not everybody understands that, so that's why I go into the specifics.
And I have to defer to Neil on this, but I believe we're in federal court right now.
Well, you agreed, there was a settlement.
We settled on our federal lawsuit, and let me, because y'all, unless you're bored with this, then you can stop me, but because I'll talk about Camelot all night long. But we settled a federal lawsuit that stemmed from detection of toxic products leaching out of the landfill and towards the Trinity River, which is designate waters of the state a drinking water source. And we settled that lawsuit after Farmers Branch agreed to every term that we put, which was to create what's called a slurry wall. It's kind of like a concrete wall or bentonite wall that goes below the theoretically impermeable shale layer that is the bottom bowl of the landfill. And they agreed to do that. After they did that, though, within, I'm going to say like 2 weeks, there was detection of groundwater seeping upward into the impermeable shale layer, which indicated that the shale had been breached, which is what we've always contended, was that the shale had faults in it. And the only way, and this is after looking at all the options on the table, the only way we're ever really going to settle this issue is to get TCEQ to put not just more closely spaced monitoring stations, because a plume can migrate as a small sliver between 2 monitoring stations and then do this. Not only more monitoring stations, but they need to be deeper. They're very shallow. And the water that flows under the landfill, that's not even getting monitored. That's what needs to be monitored. So if you can get that in place, then you can get action, because you can prove, look, here's what's happening here. Until you're able to prove here's what's happening here, you're just kind of arguing here's what's happening here. It scares me too that TCEQ was very quick to come back with a solution to the groundwater seepage, and they said, well, here's a quick fix, do this, and they're trying to get that permitted. Farmers Branch trying to get that permitted. I don't want the quick fix, I want the right fix, but more importantly, if you start covering up this breach, you start putting things on top of it, 2 things happen. You run the risk of making the breach expand because of the weight on it, and secondly, you can't get back to find out what's happening. You can't find out if that's getting worse. So,
any other tenants?
Sorry.
That's good. You sound like me on water districts. People, I start to go back and talk about water districts and stuff.
Just from what was the original question?
So I want to introduce you real quick. So this is John Grena.
I'm John Moreno. Sorry I'm late. I can't be in two places at once, but I love your group. We have just another size just like this, maybe more. But thank you for being here, and I'm sorry that I'm late. I apologize to all of you. I just wish I could be in two places at once. If it was about the Campbell landfill, with Mr. Ferguson, we went to the Carrollton High School and spoke against it. I'm against that. I didn't like what they wanted to do. They wanted to add 200 more feet to what's already there. Once it gets to its top, which was another 20, 30 feet or so before it gets full. Keep in mind, that is a 20-story building, acres, that's a huge complex. I mean, that's so much concrete, you know, I mean, that's like blocks out the earth, right? You know, it would just change weather patterns as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I half joke about it, but I'm against that. With the encroachment of the population and everything, Farmers Branch needs to find an end of life to that and move somewhere else and find another place. I really do not want that landfill to be any bigger than it is because of what we're doing. Now, you may have heard some of the naysayers, hey, you know that there was a landfill there when you moved here. That's not an excuse because no one ever tells you what's going on around you when you buy your lovely homes. Frankly, I would not want to see that like you guys are seeing it right now, especially in the summer when the wind blows your way.
Well, maybe, you guys shouldn't sell land to other cities.
That decision was made way before anybody here, well, maybe Rudy's been there a long time. Was that decision made when you were on the council?
Farmers Branch bought the land before it was in Lewisville, before it was in Lewisville. It was in the county.
And they were grandfathered in.
That's right.
What is the difference between a landfill and a dump?
Oh, massive, huge. We could be here all night. The biggest difference is, in 25 words or more, no, the biggest difference is that when you think of a dump, you think of people just hauling stuff in, they drop it off there and it rots. The first thing you're not doing at a landfill is trying to get anything to decompose. And I think that comes as a huge surprise to people when they hear that. They think that you want all this crud to just melt down and decompose. You don't want it to decompose. Another thing is only a small patch of the landfill is open at any given time. It's covered up every night. And there's multiple reasons why, but a lot of it is to prevent water from entering the landfill, which creates a muck called leachate. And another reason is that if the landfill ever catches on fire, it's a burning mountain.
Okay, yes, yes. So, yes.
Yeah, I don't know, maybe this is I should know this, but does the city of Lewisville and Castle Hills, does our trash go there? Do we contract with?
No.
Okay, because if you could cut off the customers, you can't make any money,
They've got
right?
plenty of people.
Or you
lined up
make it
to
too
take the trash.
expensive, they'll leave. If there's a bunch of, you know,
I know
CQ restrictions to make it not profitable anymore, is that an approach or?
What I said earlier about, and I wasn't trying to be glib about it, but it's already a landfill. TCEQ can handle a few protests, and they basically already approved it right now. But if they went to, if we were going somewhere else to build a landfill new in an area, everybody in the county would be on, no matter what county you're in. So that's what I'm talking, they will look at it. Well, we've got 4 people complaining about this, but it's already there. So we'll just let it get a little bit bigger. And we're opposed to that. We have very little say-so with TCEQ. As a matter of fact, I believe we're even limited on what we can challenge to them. A city that's affected by it, you can tell more about that, Neil.
what constitutes an affected party.
Yeah.
Carrollton is not considered an affected party. That's what the legislation is trying to, in part, create, is the expansion of what defines an affected party. Lewisville is considered an affected party, but we can only challenge it on technical grounds. TCEQ has no authority, and this is again what the state bill is, the state's bill is looking to modify. And y'all may know this from having gone to the meeting and gotten feedback afterwards, but TCEQ is not allowed to consider the impact to property value, adjacent land, development. No, it's all technical, all technical. Does it satisfy all technical merits and safeguards? And
I'm sorry,
that's the
it's-
fight.
Yeah, it's 8:30, so you guys have been up here for an hour and a half.
I want one last,
All right,
one last statistic that you'll find interesting. So I mentioned earlier they've taken about 1,000 tons a day at Camelot. They'll still go for 15 years, maybe 16 years, rates are going. Less than, I was at a meeting where farmers, I go to a quarterly landfill meeting y'all may not know about, but I represent the city. And less than, well, I'm going to tell you less than 3% of the daily intake, but certainly less than 5% is the city of Farmers Branch. 95 to 97% of the intake or more is sold as an asset to other cities. And city of Farmers Branch makes massive amounts of money doing that.
So maybe there's a forum where people have continuing questions about the dump or the landfill or whatever. Can reach out to Neil and because obviously he knows a lot about the subject, as I'm sure a couple of others do. Maybe there's a Facebook page that we can set up, the Camelot Facebook page, and then people can ask questions and the city council.
I just want to add something. That I used to, well, I was a volunteer for the Clinton Global Initiative, and we did a project on a blueprint of an unknown city it was a landfill project. It was several years back, but it was something about hazardous gases that are being produced. And the Clinton Global Initiative and a bunch of engineers got together and figured out that there was a way to recycle those gases where it wouldn't harm the people locally. So that's something that I'm actually looking into. I'm reaching back out to the Clinton Global Initiative and seeing if they would help us figure out a solution to this.
And that's already being done on
It's
all
being
the
done.
landfills. They use the gas to generate the electricity to run the landfills. It's
Yeah.
already been done.
Camelot, they all do it. They all do it.
Judith, as a facilitator and organizer of all this, you get the honor of the last question.
So actually, instead of asking a question, I'm going to ask Tricia to stand up. And as you know, she's running for the school board. And just tell us a little bit about, and you've got about 2 minutes, tell us a little bit about why we should elect you for the LISD school board.
All right. Well, my name is Tricia Sheffield. I'm completing my first term on the board and I'm running for re-election for my second term. I actually am kind of in a really unique position this time around in that when you go to vote, you will see another name on the ballot, but the person on the ballot is not running. He actually submitted a statement to withdraw from the election, but it wasn't notarized, so it's not recognized by the elections office. So he's on the ballot, but he's not a candidate. So I think that's, more than anything else, that's the point that I'd like to make, that people know that that I'm really the only viable candidate for place 2.
You're selling yourself way short.
But I would like to say, I mean, it's been a real honor to serve, and I've really enjoyed my time on the board. We have a great school district, and there is much to be done, but there's also much to celebrate. I've had the honor of serving as the president of the board for this last year, and that's a position that's elected by my peers on the board, not an elected position by the public. But in that time, we've really seen some positive changes, I think, just in the way we collaborate, in the way we have conversations about future growth of LISD, future decisions. We've really worked hard, I think, to make some of our processes more transparent. So I'm really very proud of what's been done. It's like I said, I think we have a great school district, and for residents in this area, it's just people around the state look to this district. When we go to conferences, when we go to things that people want to know what we're doing in Lewisville ISD. Every month when we have board meetings, we're recognizing students and schools for their achievements at high levels. We excel academically, we excel in the fine arts, we excel athletically. It's a great place to be, and it's an exciting time to be involved in the schools. So, okay. Anyway, but thank you, and I encourage you more than anything else to just go vote. It is important, and in this area of town, we just don't do it in great numbers. So when you vote for place 2, please remember that I'm a candidate.
Trish, aren't they going to have voting after this
No, actually, I'm gonna tell you about voting, so, that's okay. So early voting starts on Monday. On Monday, you can vote, and the closest place to vote to here is gonna be the Josie Ranch, or the, I'm sorry, the Josie and Hebron Library. And that's early voting. Now, if you wait all the way till May 9th, which is actually election day to vote, then you're going to have to vote at the community center on Queen Margaret. Okay, so, but Queen Margaret Community Center is not doing early voting. Okay, so you have two choices. Starting Monday, early vote, go to the library. Wait till May 9th, go to Queen Margaret. Tricia is the only person in this room that you can actually vote for. But I encourage you to do it along with Rhonda. They're both running for, as she said, LASD School Board. We need some representation, where we can get it. And having it on the school board, I think, is, as y'all agree, would be one of the most important places we can have that.
Not at the government center on Main Street.
That's another voting.
In early voting, you can vote anywhere.
Early voting, you can actually vote.
Well, that's what I mean, it's, yes.
You can vote anywhere, or actually for early voting, you can vote anywhere in the county. If you want to know where the other voting places are, go to votedenton.com, and then list all the voting spaces. So early voting, vote anywhere, closest to here, Josie Ranch Library. Wait till May 9th. You must, if you're a Castle Hills resident, you must go to the Queen Margaret Community Center to vote.
All right, so I'll bet $5,000 that Tricia wins.
Thanks all, Kenneth, thanks for time for coming out. The people from Lewisville that actually trekked out here with Kenneth, thank you so much for coming, appreciate that effort. One more plug for KLB, we're gonna be out there Saturday, not tomorrow, Saturday. It's a couple, 3 hours, and we have a great time doing it, so thanks for coming out, I appreciate it.